Hi, welcome. I'm Bill Say. In this video, I want to talk about the process work model of conflict. It's basically 3 steps. In this video, I'm going to talk about the first 2 steps and also talk a little bit about application. So, step 1, take your own side. And what that means is to really stand for, support, believe in your own position, your own perspective, your own interests, needs, feelings, etc. And that's whether you're an individual or you're a group or collective. And that's also applicable if you're a facilitator helping people in their own relationship or conflict situation. So taking one's own side also puts information out on the table so the other party can more clearly know what they're responding to. In many relationship and conflict situations that I've seen, sometimes this first step, it doesn't happen so clearly, so the nature of the relationship or conflict situation is not quite so clear. And so really deeply, congruently, fully representing one's own side can be a really helpful step in relationship and conflict work. Now, as you may see, people, individuals, and groups have history and also present-day circumstances and conditions where it may not necessarily feel so safe, or it may not actually be so safe to really take one's own side. So sometimes those conditions have to be dealt with first or at the same time because of these different historical or present-day situations. Also, the issue of rank or relative power, our ability to influence one another, and also comes into play in conflict settings and can make step 1 a little bit complex if we are, for example, taking our own side in a conflict with somebody who has more rank than us. For example, in a work setting where we may have a conflict with, for example, our boss. And so it becomes a delicate matter to hold the rank situation with enough awareness and sensitivity that taking your own side doesn't, for example, get you fired, or puts you into some kind of a dangerous situation. So it's not just taking your own side without considering the context, rank issues, history, etc. Let me go on to a little bit to step 2 of this model. Step 2 is take the other side. And one way to think about it is getting into the other person's shoes. So you start to see or even imagine their position, their point of view, their needs, their interests, feelings, etc. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do this step 2. We could ask questions to try to get to know the other person or the other group's point of view on things. Or a really interesting way to do it is to imagine that we are that other person, at least for a minute. And there's some folk wisdom that suggests before we judge the other, walk a mile in the other's shoes. And I think there's a lot of wisdom to this bit of folk wisdom, because it's not saying take 2 steps in the other person's shoes, it's saying walk a mile, so that we're really getting into that person's position. We're trying to imagine and feel that other person's feelings. So as you can imagine, if we're doing it even somewhat well, we might notice that we start to have a greater understanding for the other side. We may start to also find that if we're in a polarized kind of conflict where one side says yes and the other side says no, oh, I'm starting to understand your yes position. I have fully expressed my no position, but now I'm starting to understand why you are saying yes, for example. So step 2 it can happen sometimes quite naturally. Sometimes it happens without people even intending to do so. And we all of a sudden find ourselves either sympathizing or sometimes acting like the other side, which is a way of taking the other side. Sometimes bringing a little bit more awareness here can be really helpful. So, a little bit of possible application. Now, you may think of a relationship situation in your life, in the present or in the past, where you just got stuck in the conflict. And so to start to learn this model or think about it, you might consider, did you take your own side fully enough? Could you? And if not, were there conditions that needed to be met first before you could more fully take your own side? Secondly, were you able to consider the other person's point of view? And if you're in a current relationship or conflict situation, you may consider, if you're stuck in it, you might try for even a minute or two, take those 2 steps, preferably take the mile, and consider what it's like if you imagine getting to the other side, seeing what things look like from that other perspective, or asking the other person if you don't really feel that you understand where they're coming from, why they're saying the things they're saying, doing the things that they're doing, etc. All right? So it's a really helpful step. It's one of the quickest ways I've found to de-escalate polarized conflicts and create understanding. And if you're thinking about diversity, and I think about diversity in the widest sense of the word, it's a really quick way to enhance our diversity awareness as we start to get to know the other side. As a facilitator, if you're helping people in your family, in your team, organization, or community, you may consider step 1 by thinking, do I really understand what this person's saying? Have I really heard? Have I really heard what they're really trying to say? Or is there some way where I can somehow encourage them to go a little further, to say a little bit more? That's one way as a facilitator where you could practice step 1. Step 2, you may see a point where people get really stuck or really polarized, and sometimes suggesting that if they are willing to even temporarily switch sides, try to understand a little bit more the other position, can be really helpful in really stuck conflict or relationship situations. And sometimes parties, for different reasons, will refuse to do so, and that may suggest that they haven't gone far enough in step 1, that they haven't fully expressed themselves and had someone, perhaps you the facilitator, really listen to them, understand them, empathize with them. So that's step 2 of this 3-step model. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the step 3 part, which is getting at the neutral or witnessing part, and how we can access nature to cultivate a greater, more holding capacity for all kinds of people, perspectives, and situations. There you have it. Have any questions or comments, or if you experiment with this a little bit and you have some different experiences that you want to write in about, please do. Okay, hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.